Welcome everybody to the Hot Take. This is episode 9. I'm coming at you with Joe Pollard out of Austin, Texas. How's it going, man?
Doing good, doing good. How are you doing? Need to
I'm
take a
doing
drink of
great.
my ice cold, delicious Lone Star beer, the national beer of Texas. So,
Representing
yep,
the Austin sponsorship, of course. Um,
absolutely.
Joe's been a leader in the Austin community for a long time, even back in the Bumble Bash 1 days. And so it's great to finally have you on. So let's help everyone know who you are, what you do.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Joe Pollard. I work as a senior project manager in pharmaceutical research. So I help test new drugs on behalf of pharmaceutical companies and humans. And then we eventually take that data set to the FDA and then make the case for specific indications.
For sure. Are you a longtime Texas or Texan, I guess?
Yes, I grew up in San Antonio, and then we moved to Austin about 6 years ago for the job opportunity, and then eventually to start a family, and then unbeknownst to me at the time to also start a KQ fan. So it's been Austin's been very good to me in many many ways.
Yeah, for sure. And what brought you to the arcade in the first place?
So I grew up playing arcades, so it's a very long story. But the short of it is, I watched the documentary King of Kong, which is a very interesting documentary between two main characters, Steve Wiebe and Billy Mitchell, as they point press to crack a million points and hit the kill screen on Donkey Kong. And that just got me thinking in my modern day adult life, I probably could start collecting arcade games. I found some YouTube channels. One thing led to another, and the games that you see here are just sort of the logical conclusion of that. I have my Capcom Big Blue Generation 1, which was actually purchased from another Killer Queen member, Trackballer. So thanks so much for that. And then, of course, I have this mini pack right here as well for my kids. Like, I'm not sure if you can see just how small it actually is, but that's the one that's going to get my kids hooked and playing as well. And I have a couple more in the garage, just projects. It's a lot of fun. It's a super fun hobby outside of Killer Queen, but then to have a living, breathing dynamic within 2018 for Killer Queen as well is just a bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy to see these communities forming around this game. And I imagine it's not a new thing. I don't know how long you've been in the arcade scene.
Right. No, gosh, I've been collecting now for about the past 5 years. I mean, King of Kong came out in 2008.
Yeah.
So I've always like similar to Dexter Chaco's set up about just the way that he has things set up in lots of games that he can just sort of play. I sort of have a very similar setup on Hyperspin as well. And so yeah, I mean, I've been involved on and off with arcades pretty much my whole life. Street Fighter 2 starting out back in the day for me, which was early to mid 90s, and then DDR more in the 2000s, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 later on, and now Killer Queen.
Yeah. Is there something unique about this community, do you feel?
Yes, absolutely. It's I'd say in the fighting game community, especially, it's more of a lone wolf. It's really you versus the other person. But in Killer Queen, especially, when I saw the Logan Arcade tour from the John's Arcade channel 2 years ago, which was the original inspiration for me to even ask the Pinball Zoner to get Killer Queen, I just immediately understood the meta of, oh my goodness, there's 10 players, there's 5 versus 5, there's a community, and you have to play it in person. So just the challenge of then organizing that entire group was just incredibly appealing to me.
Yeah, for sure. Before we jump into the more KQ stuff, I know you're also a fan of the NBA.
Yes.
Do you want to chat about that a bit? I know we've got a lot of basketball fans.
Right, yeah. So shout out to all the basketball fans. My team is the San Antonio Spurs, and we are clinging, holding on for our playoff lives. I think there's 2 games left in the season. We're still trying to get in, and then I think longer term we'll have to figure out what the negotiation will be for Kawhi Leonard and what his injury situation is going to be. But I mean, aside from being a Spurs fan, I'm an NBA fan, and the Golden State Warriors and what they're doing is incredibly special. But now seeing that Chris Paul in Houston is helping out James Harden, and just how they're distributing the basketball and really playing beautiful offense. And then of course you have the course of LeBron and just the whole legacy of where he wants to end his sort of final chapter of his career. So longtime fan, longtime student of basketball, and definitely can get into the analytics of things as well on that side.
Yeah, do you draw any inspiration from basketball? Another 5-on-5 game?
That's exactly, you immediately connected with it. It's that Especially with basketball, you can have such an impact as an individual player, at least a player like a LeBron or a Kevin Durant or a Steph Curry or a Kawhi Leonard when he's healthy can just have such a huge impact. And so I think it's the same way. It's very engaging. It's a very engaging sport to watch, and there are certainly some analogs in terms of just what sets are we going to run, or what sets is the team going to run out of a timeout based on where their shot clock is and who's on the court and time and score and just everything else going on. So it's definitely engaging to see the impact that an individual player can have, but then also just the team dynamic as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's roll into some audience questions.
Okay.
We've got 2 anonymous ones and 1 from a friend of yours.
Right.
First one is unattached. What's the story of the Mantis logo? It's a longtime staple of the Austin scene.
It is.
Where'd it come from?
Legend has it. Well, just so everyone can see, this is the Mantis logo. And so you can actually tell it's eating the queen there at the bottom, and of course, the hives as well. So it originally started for us because I know there's the term Mantis where you actually bait another player to dive on you and then kill them from above. Mm-hmm. I mean, for us, it started as a GIF that we had originally posted. That was I don't know, maybe 18 months ago or something like that.
Yeah, I remember.
So
yeah.
I know it created quite a buzz. I remember. People were asking, "Oh, is there a Mantis build or upgrade or secret something?" So I think it was incredibly captivating as one Facebook scene to just see the effect that it had on other Facebook scenes. We just sort of took it and ran with it, and there's a local artist that Chris Steinberg, one of our top queens here in Austin, had a connection on the side and ended up designing this Mantis logo, and I think we wore those as the Hive of the Mantis team in last June for KQ20 in the green shirts. And then we just kind of ran with it and did another run with the burnt orange, which is what our city is essentially known for. So we're happy to just have that sort of be our mascot and our banner, and also just something that distinguishes us even more so. And so, I mean, there are other Mantis type content in the future, so stay tuned for that as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see it. I'm a sucker for a good T-shirt. I've actually run out of KQ T-shirts to wear, so now I'm wearing plain colors. So I'll have to get my hands on some new KQ Austin. Merch.
I mean, how neat would it be if all of Team Break had Killer Queen Austin shirts, and then with your names on the back and everything. So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, let's see what we can work out. I mean, the T-shirt printer vendor is here local, and so I could literally message him right now, and maybe just message me your sizes or something. And then I'd love to see that debuted at one of the future tournaments. So we'll see how that goes.
I'll have to talk to the boss about it. Randy runs a tight ship.
Right.
So this one is from Josh Bird, another Austin player. Why don't you travel more? You're very much dedicated to the game, obviously, but we don't see you around much.
That is true. And the answer that I give to everyone is that it's Killer Queen is a fantastic hobby of mine, and I love it. I'm incredibly passionate about it. I essentially started the scene here because I believed in it, but at the same time, it's just one subset of my life, and there are several of obviously working full time, and then my wife, as well as my 3 kids, who are Chloe, age 4, Adele, age 2, and Connor, age 1. So just between all of my various obligations, on top of the fact that I have to travel for work, it's hard to then justify additional travel on top of that. So those are some very, very, I guess, intentional conversations that I will have and that I do have. I have every intention of traveling this year. You will very likely see me at Bumble Bash 3 in Portland. So very much looking forward to that. And then we'll see, fingers crossed, if travel schedule and teams open up, you might see me down the line. But it certainly is not for lack of desire. I love playing this game. I love everything about this game. I love the people on this game. I love the national scene, just interacting with all of you, and just the work that you do as well here on these interviews, just to see that we're all sort of occupying the same headspace is incredible to see. And there's just such good content that you're sharing on this channel as well. So very much appreciative of that, especially for those of us us that can't travel as much. But I certainly, as the kids are getting older, I certainly hope to travel more in the future.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, man. That means a lot to me. But personally, like maybe it looks like I've got all my shit together, but it's tough for me, and I don't have a whole family and kids. How do you do it? How do you keep it all together?
Yeah. Okay. So the message I do want to share with everyone is that it is doable, but you have to be very. I don't think balance is the right word. I think the word that my wife and I threw around, because my wife has a hobby that she's equally passionate about as well, is completely apart from KQ. But we're selectively unbalanced in that, there are certain nights and certain times where, she'll watch the kids so that I can go to league night and play with my league team, and then I can hurry home after that, or vice versa. Natalie, shout out to my beautiful, amazing, intelligent, gorgeous wife, Natalie, that actually makes all of this possible. But her hobby is pottery. And so the other half of this office is all of her pottery tools and various states of ring holders and cups and mugs and just everything that she talks about. So it's just incredibly amazing. And we're equally supportive of each other. So it's just incredibly amazing to see her talent grow. And she has shows and craft fairs and conventions that she goes to as well. That's completely apart and separate. So maybe I'll share or give her a shout out on the Killer Queen Austin page as well. So, I mean, it is very doable, but it's not easy. But, generally looking at the other scenes, there's generally a younger demographic than, how many scene leads have a wife and 3 kids? And, but it's possible, but you have to really pick and choose and just be very intentional with your time, because you don't have very much spare time. But it is doable. It is possible to make it all work. You just have to sort of have that same eye of the tiger that you have as you're in a bump battle as a queen or whatever strat you're doing. You can just kind of do that as a family. And there is a family of 5 of us. So hey, Bumble Bash 10, you might see us all as a family compete. So that'd be something amazing as well. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I like that being intentional with your time. It's something that I'm working on, and I think that's really great advice for sure. Yeah, and if we don't have the Bumble Bash 10 at a barcade, I can't wait to see all your kids and your wife. Just make a whole team.
Absolutely. Well, hey, you can have it back at Austin here. It's a family entertainment center, which is sort of a different caveat. They don't card people here, so maybe we can start the campaign to just bring it back. At least one future Bumble Bash back. We already did it once, so hey, let's
10th anniversary. Let's jump into that. Let's just talk about the scene and the history around Bumble Bash 1. So we'll do a deep dive on the scene history in a second, but I really want to talk about what was the experience of hosting Bumble Bash like back then?
Drinking water from a fire hydrant is the best metaphor that I can give. And I know we'll give the entire history later, but it was amazing. And I don't think any of the original 8 or so of us that were there in person, plus Brandon, who couldn't make it that year, but just none of us really knew how much it would mean to us in the future, meaning just the community, meaning the people, meaning the game itself, meaning the challenge of upping our skill levels, and then just all the logistic behind the scenes, like they were shipping all of the supplies to my house just to sit and hold, and then Alan and someone else had come to pick things up, just the posters and t-shirts. So I had sort of a pile of things. So I was just happy to help with everything behind the scenes. And that was really only maybe 2.5 months after we actually got our cab to begin with. So it was just amazing to see just how big and amazing an arcade game could be in today's age where everything is more console based. So it was.
So then let's roll it back. Go back to the beginning. How did a KQ cab end up in Austin, Texas?
Okay, so I'm an arcade collector, and on the John's Arcade YouTube channel, I saw a tour of Logan Arcade where He walked through the entire record store and then walked over to this across the street or down the road to the Killer Queen cabin. That's where, I had made mention before. I immediately understood what it meant. I wrote 2 emails, one to the Pinball's owner, Darren, and then 2 to the game developers, which I didn't know at the time, but it was just I just logged onto the website and they wrote an email, and Josh DeBonis ended up responding very quickly. And so one thing led to another. Pinballs ended up making the purchase from Betson, who was the distributor at the time. So those are the version 2 cabinets that had the logo on the side, which was a new question back in the day. So they made the purchase. It was there, and that was, I think, August of, what was that, 2016. So it was just amazing. And Nick Mikros had actually flown in that summer before, and that was the first time I had met Nick, and he just sort of had given me a primer as well of just sort of what to expect and how best to build a community and reach out, and just lessons learned from prior cabinets. There were much fewer cabinets back then when Austin had joined. And then, of course, Josh Ecklow as well. He was just huge, secret sauce during those early days of he was really available at the times. I just had so many questions to ask of how do we do this, and how do we do this, and how do we do this, and he was just always available and always helpful. And then Alan Dang as well, down the line, just lots of technical questions, lots of lots of thanks to share. Spoiler alert, there's going to be lots of thanks to share on this interview for how the scene was able to just get there. So I mean, it was just amazing to see, the cab was there, and then immediately, like you had said, we were hosting the national team, and all these players that I'd sort of seen from a distance we're now actually physically here.
Yeah. So then you have the cab for 2 months. Bumble Bash 1 happens.
Yep.
How does this affect these core members of the Austin scene?
We didn't really know. I mean, I was still learning how to run a Facebook group at the time. So, there were, and we just didn't have that many members that were just, core like Austin members. But what we did have were some key friendships that have been long standing sort of before Bumble Bash and really before Austin. Of course, myself, my brother, Jonathan Pollard, as well as Brandon Robertson, we all grew up together, went to the same middle school, went to the same high school. So we've sort of known each other and competed in various games for the last 20 plus years. So we definitely had that just sort of experience to fall back on, as well as John and Brandon and then eventually Chris and Adriana and a few others all were part of the Sherwood, let me make sure I'm saying this right, Sherwood Forest or Sherwood Fair, Texas Renaissance Festival, sort of outdoor camping, dress up group. And so I mean, part of the rowdiness of the bunch that you see, it sort of stems from that mentality and that experience. And so Killer Queen basically became indoor Renfest on Fridays, and then they would all go camping out on Saturdays or whatever it ended up being. So there were some sort of existing friendships. So we were able to sort of take the punch, as it were, as we were playing, and with the experience that we had as a scene 2.5 months old, we performed exactly as you'd expect for a team that's 2.5 months old. And I'm very proud of everybody that showed up and just had the grit and the resilience to show up the next week, because there was sort of a dark week where we didn't really say much, but we all sort of showed up the next week still wanting to continue to be a part of this process apart from the national scene, and just sort of amongst us to grow the scene as well. So it was just incredibly encouraging to just see that everyone sort of had that same mentality and wanted to take on that same banner of proving that Austin was going to be here to stay.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you guys are here to stay. You guys contribute a lot. And I'm going to jump back to the Ren Fair thing. Everyone seems very comfortable in costumes.
Yes.
Killer Queen Austin has had some really great costumes come out. Honestly, some of the best in the scene.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk about? You've sent me a picture of a Halloween. I'll link it to everyone below.
Yes.
But this is really impressive.
Yes.
what you've got.
So, right. So, yeah, obviously, Austin, the scene overall, our motto really for the city, keep Austin weird.
Yeah.
So, we're perfectly happy to dress up. And so that just sort of came together. That was the second Halloween at Pinballs. Natalie and I, my wife and I, had won the first Halloween. We were dressed up as Pac-Man and Mrs. Pac-Man. And so now that we were all sort of more familiar with Killer Queen, it just sort of ended up coming together. And Natalie's sister Lauren wanted to get a team together. That was the first time we ended up finding a t-shirt vendor for at least the Bumble Bears that wore the bodysuits. And then Chris and Adriana and Steven and I guess Marcelo and Hannah and a few others all ended up, Anita, of course, is the snail, all ended up just sort of dressing up and running with it. And so it was just an amazing way of sort of coming together as a group, an amazing, experience that we all sort of shared as a scene. And those costumes have actually made their appearances elsewhere. I know, and then we'll get to that, but the Texas Gamers Lounge grand opening, we had some costume appearances there as well. And so who knows, maybe you'll see some costumes in the future when you see us in person.
Hey, I can't wait for it. And just looking at this list of what Austin is up to, I think there's a lot going on with you guys, like you've said,
yes.
Apart from the national scene that a lot of us don't know about. So run us
yes.
through like all this crazy stuff you guys are doing.
So I don't think it comes as any surprise that Pinballs is a different sort of beast. Our venue, our original venue, is a family entertainment center. So there are kids there. There are a bunch of ticket games. So it was a very hard sell to then convince the owner of the legitimacy of a Killer Queen cabinet when I didn't have a scene. I had, my brother and I were there the first night, seating games. And that was basically it. And then we ended up, recruiting some amazing people to join us for Bumble Bash afterwards. So there was just sort of this ongoing dialogue of convincing him of the legitimacy of the game, of the scene, of sort of the return on investment that he gets, not necessarily from the direct quarters that go into the game, even though the game was paid off in less than a year, and just in addition to the food and drink sales as well. So I just kind of had to have that kind of ongoing dialogue with him to just sort of convince him to keep the game, because it was on it wasn't on loan, but it was on payments from Betson for those first 6 months or so when he had it. And then after that, when the scene had grown, he eventually decided to purchase the cab full out, which was a huge plus. And it just gave our scene sort of an incredible sense of stability and know that we could build around that. And right around that time, that was May of, what was that, last year, 2017, when Greg Prim, I tagged him a bunch. He's the new Pinball's marketing director. And that was sort of the second wave of when things really, really took off, because he brought in his own ideas of First Friday, of putting it on free play and actually getting a voice at the table of Pinball's management of, here's what the Killer Queen group is about. They're good people and we want to support them, and here's how we can support them. So he very much did some wonderful things, just sort of being our voice and being in the ear of the owner. And so huge shout out to just Greg for going over and above and beyond, and just his availability to myself and my brother and everybody. It really was a turning point for the scene. If we need something fixed, it was much harder to get a button or a switch fixed before Greg showed up versus after. So I think that was a big one. We continued to grow over that summer, and then obviously Halloween was huge as well. And so we'll link to those pictures. And I think the next biggest event behind the scenes, behind all of this, what I was also looking to do that Greg Prim's brother had mentioned was Extra Life. And so shout out to Megan from Dell Children's Medical Center and Children's Miracle Network. I had tried to contact the local Austin Guild, but it wasn't as active. And so I ended up just calling the contact directly, and I think you can link to the article, but just one thing led to another. After we got in touch, we basically had 2 weeks to plan, Extra Life and streaming, and to just get an internet set up at Pinballs as well. We ended up raising, I think our original goal was $1,337. We ended up almost over tripling that amount, I believe. And we have raised almost $4,000 for Extra Life, and just raised just made some incredible inroads and lots of great community connections. And of course, Extra Life benefits the Children's Miracle Network of hospitals, and our local chapter was Dell Children's Medical Center. So if anybody's interested in streaming Extra Life in the future, I'll be happy to just sort of provide those details, because we have since taken over that guild as well. Extra Life, my brother Jonathan Pollard and Brandon Robertson are the vice prez for Extra Life now. So they're the main points of contact. And because Killer Queen meets in person and makes for a very convenient meeting place, we just sort of meet maybe, they essentially meet maybe an hour or so before League Night actually happens. And then I'll just kind of show up and sort of catch the tail end and make sure from a Killer Queen standpoint they have the support they need. And there's some amazing things. And I'm sure we can mention the Mug and Games group down the line as well, but definitely more to talk about there. But we just have that huge event for Extra Life, and then then Mug and Games. So my brother and Brandon Robertson and Stephen Kauke and Jack Aaron Martin all decided to form a company to focus specifically on two things: streaming, very high quality streaming, and esports community building. And they're doing a bang up job on both of those things, not just in Killer Queen. They're also at Arcade UFO, and they've streamed several events there for Dragon Ball Z and I think some other fighting games. Of course, down at Texas Gamers Lounge, they streamed there. We were at South by Southwest for the gaming convention, and they'll be streaming Overwatch. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but it's going to be this upcoming weekend, the 13th, 14th of April. I think that I'll probably link it in the Facebook group before it actually before this episode actually ends up going. But they've done a fantastic job of just sort of forming that company, sort of independent of a Killer Queen scene, so that they have the ability to sort of grow their Twitch viewership more so. And as you know, it's even for Bumble Bash and for some major tournaments, if we break 100, that's viewers live. That's a sort of an amazing accomplishment. So
for sure.
It's just sort of the uniquenesses of an arcade game in 2018, which is a challenge I think we'll gladly take on and look to grow in the future. And so I'm just happy to have my brother and Brandon just as two long term just sort of co-gamers leading up those streaming efforts. So that was sort of the other big thing that had taken place. And then January of 2018 of this year is when Small Town Brewery had approached us after our group was sort of reaching a critical mass where they decided, hey, this is worth sponsoring. Mm-hmm. So shout out to Portland and Dylan and all of the wonderful people that showed that a Killer Queen sponsorship is possible and doable and legitimate. And so the local rep just introduced himself to me, and we had I think, maybe a December or so to just sort of get things set up. And we did another charity event for Toys for Tots, which we were happy to help sponsor and just for the gift wrapping event that taken place. But there was I guess we'll say a corporate restructuring, and the Small Town Brewery reps were all let go, and the rep was then the same guy, Andy Depew, who's been a fantastic guy. Was given an opportunity to sponsor Lone Star Beer, and so oh my gosh, Lone Star Beer, the national beer of Texas, our powers combined with Killer Queen. And the sales have gone through the roof. They're up something like 92% since the Killer Queen sponsorship of Lone Star Regular, and then Lone Star Light, they're up something like 300% almost. So it's I think it's a win-win on both sides, that because we get the sponsorship for the gameplay and the prizes, in addition to Greg Prim's help on the marketing director's side. That's sort of this sort of third wave of where our scene has really grown to where a second night of the week has truly become legitimate. And then of course Josh Bird has done a fantastic job structuring and organizing our league, and it's become something really, really special here at Pinballs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just hearing all the details, it sounds like you've got a lot of people who really know what they're doing, are willing to put the time in, and just will go to the ends of the earth to make this a scene to reckon with.
Right. Sure. Yes, and we're glad to do it. And I think part of that too, as you know, is in the challenge with growing the scene is of course just having access to a huge talent base. The bigger it's just a numbers game. The bigger the scene grows, the bigger the Facebook group is, then the bigger it's sort of a reflection of the in real life people. And so, sort of the iteration, the natural evolution of what happened then was to get a second location. And so. Texas Gamers Lounge. Imran Acosta, the owner, who also runs Arcades for Home, was a longtime arcade collector friend. Again, since I guess we met 5 years ago over who was it? He sold me a Donkey Kong. I've since sold him 2 Donkey Kongs. I don't remember. Donkey Kong is a hot commodity. So anyways,
Wow.
in the arcade collecting world. So
Yeah.
so I've been his ear, and we kind of had a friendship before that. And so, eventually just one thing led to another, and they were able to reach an agreement with Bumble Bear. And I think he was at the campus clash this past weekend as well. So we're happy to have just sort of a Killer Queen cabinet that's available and traveling to various scenes, various locations nationally as well, South by Southwest. I think there'll be a Classic Game Fest here in Austin as well. And it's just good to have another friend, another ally, another location that we can just go to and help grow the scene. And they're right by, they're a college town as well. So, we'll hopefully start getting some inroads into the local university there as well. So just thrilled to see what direction that goes. And then because of all this attention that we started getting, Twin Galaxies is an editorial that covers a lot of things, but they were originally covering the arcade high score dynamic. I was first introduced to them from that King of Kong documentary.
Yeah.
And one of their local writers actually lives very close to us. And so I found out, hey, I heard you did a special here. Can we do on pinballs and on and just the amazing venue that's there, which it is. But can we do a sub sort of article on just the Killer Queen League? And so I think just TJ did a fantastic job sort of capturing the magic of what the scene is and what it means to all of us. And the interviewees did fantastic in just giving him very quotable quotes and just the direction of where Austin is going. And just now that we sort of have the sponsorship and have the streaming and have 2 scenes, I really feel like we're sort of in a position to have the stability to really up our games. And obviously the league play, our play is increased in leveled up incredibly in the past 4 months or so since we've really sort of gotten into that swing, gotten into the routine of things. And we have a lot more people watching film and just getting more, just asking higher level questions. Yeah. And so I'm very, very happy to sort of see the trend of where that's headed.
Yeah, for sure. And, part of why we're having this interview is to promote Cinco Bee Mayo.
Yes.
This is your big tournament.
Yes.
This is Austin kind of, I guess, jumping back into the national scene, saying, hey, we're ready.
Yes.
Come back to Austin.
Right. And credit to my brother for having that vision. I think my original vision was just sort of South by Southwest, and we can kind of piggyback on the major convention that Austin is known for. But amongst the scene and amongst the group chat, there was sort of this other dynamic of, well, airplane tickets are expensive to Austin because we're not a major hub, on top of the fact that South by Southwest also gets very expensive. So why don't we have a sort of off week in Austin where maybe not as many things are going on, that we could then end up having hosting an invitational. So we're happy that we ended up settling on May 5th, so Cinco Bee. And now we had found out that Nick Nikros was invited by Kayla and Brian from Charlotte to attend, and so he'll be on Jonathan and Brandon's team, and so we're happy to obviously have him here, and Nick's been a great friend and a great support in growing this entire scene. So I'm happy now that the scene is sort of in this third wave to just say, this was the developer, this is the guy that helped me out, get to know him, ask him a million questions. And Nick, I can just say, look at the status of the scene. Remember when we sat here and you had your doubts about whether or not a family entertainment center in the suburbs could actually be viable. Yeah. And so I'm just happy to see this is sort of a revolution, a circle for us of how far we've come. So yes, I'm happy that Nick is coming, and we're just thrilled for all of the events and surprises that we have that entire weekend planned.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any favorites from the Austin scene that we need to look out for as people traveling to the tournament?
So Josh Bird and I have probably independently seeded the 8 teams that we have at least signed up so far. We may end up having more. So I think the team to look out for is really Josh Bird's team. I I think that because it's who is it? It's Nathan Palmer, it's Kyle, it's Lisa, Josh, and one other. I think Phil from Austin. So that's definitely going to be a very good team. I think Brandon's team, which has Nick and my brother,
Yeah.
is they would arguably and Kayla and Brian would arguably be the top two seeds. The case could be made, but the case could also be made for Chris Steinberg's team with Adriana Steinberg and Trackballer and Steven, and I think they're still looking for an objective. Or my team, my league team, which is myself, Donnie, Wayne, Marcelo, and Hannah. So I mean, but the list goes on and on. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can get a sense of those are the ones sort of to watch out for, and just sort of where the long term. The OG players are sort of coalescing around those certain teams. So certainly, definitely watch out for Brandon Robertson, the self-proclaimed best queen in Austin.
Well, I'm sure you have thoughts on that. I know you're a queen yourself.
Yes.
Toe to toe against Brandon, who's gonna take home the cake? Are you gonna say it's you? Are you gonna just let him claim that title?
No, I'm not going to let him claim that title. I'm a competitor, and so, but I understand where it came from.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done this for 25 years or so through, OG Smash on the N64, my Luigi versus his Samus, and it's just sort of, and then my younger brother Jonathan played Link as well. So I mean, I understand where it's coming from, but I mean, I suppose we could say, there's so many things to say about But in February for this week, I have your team on the ropes, and then this week you had my team on the ropes, and it just goes back and forth. So I mean, it's I understand where it's coming from, but there are a lot of good queens here in Austin that have been playing for quite some time. So Brandon is certainly in the top. In the mix for that whole thing, but I'm a competitive person. Can you tell?
Yeah, for sure. But it seems like you two, and I'm sure the others, have a pretty positive relationship despite being very tight competitors.
Yes.
Do you think that allows you to elevate your game, or or is your friendship ever stressed by this competition?
Not really. And I think because we've been through this for so many cycles, and just on top of the fact that the other top players is sort of also committed to help growing the scene and just sort of being in the nitty gritty. We've all, experienced the highs and lows of what sort of happens, or the various dynamics with the venue, and we also get to celebrate all of the successes together. So I think just it's the amazing supportive aspect of our entire community. There is just something special here that brings us all together and keeps us coming back. And so it doesn't really ever turn toxic. And I think maybe that's the dad in me as well. Mm-hmm. It's like I would hope that at some point maybe this is a scene that eventually my kids, if they would want to, to just sort of learn or learn more about the game or step into a more active role, that they would feel welcome to as well. So I think that's part of the dynamic of where just a lot. There's a lot to be said about just being involved in the conversations and just sort of helping facilitate. It's essentially the same skill set that I use at work for project management that I use here to run the league as well, and just making sure that everyone's voice is heard and the needs are met, and that at the same time problems are solved. And so just my core admin group that I have, they're all very different people, and even the ones that have served as admins in the past, they're all very different people, and they offer very different points of view, which I appreciate. And I think it's the diversity of our voices that we can then sort of unite around this game and really make it a safe place that gamers or just people sort of looking for a new experience can then be there and be a part of. And so I hope I can convey that via video, what the Austin experience is really like, because just this past Friday there was just been so many new people, or 2 or 3 week sort of people that we've just sort of scooped in and helped usher more quickly than we did in terms of training. So I think there's certainly a competitive aspect, and there are certainly issues that are discussed, but they are confronted head on as well. And I think that sort of helps to just sort of diffuse any sort of tension, or just state very candidly, here are the pros, here are the cons, here's the deal, here's how we're going to handle it, and then just standing behind those decisions. And I think it's been very good for us as a scene overall.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you've at least convinced me that Austin, Texas is a great place to play Killer Queen. It sounds like you guys have a great network of very accepting and just very bright people. who are going to wear crazy costumes and start entire companies, based around these shared passions. Um, so I mean, I feel like I've gotten a really good look at Austin. Is there any closing remarks, any words of wisdom you can give to anyone out there wanting to queen, or maybe someone else who's wanting to start a scene?
Oh gosh, yes. And I've kind of adopted some of the newer scenes behind the scenes. So
Yeah.
if you're new and you need help, you'll come find me. I'll help you out, just sort of the way I was helped out before.
Yeah.
If you're looking to start, like I say in my startups at work, for new projects that span over a couple of years, it's the same thing as with the Killer Queen scene, which is if you don't have an existential meltdown, you're probably not doing it right. So by that, I just mean you really have to be about it. You have to understand the needs of the players, understand the uniquenesses of the scene, understand the demographic, what makes certain people tick. Pinball's Lake Creek is in the suburbs, and so there are just some considerations that we needed to think about that were sort of different from Logan Arcade in Chicago or other places that New York or Portland or San Francisco or some of the other main scenes of how we were going to make those work. So there were just some considerations about the scene and just making sure that you're meeting the needs of the owner. It's usually about bottom line and about, where's the return on investment, and just sort of conveying that in a convincing way. Is also, and then just on top of the fact of just convincing people of the viability of the scene to just, keep coming back week after week, and that it's something worthwhile to do and to be a part of, that the community in and of itself is an experience. So definitely you have to be about it as a scene. I think Texas is definitely, we're looking, not just growing Austin, we're looking at growing and expanding our presence in Texas. There are other scenes. I don't think I'm spilling the beans when I say that there's a new cab coming to Abilene, Texas, or that there's a new cab coming to Fort Worth, Texas, or that there's a potentially new cab coming in another location in North Dallas, as well as Imran Acosta and I are making some inroads in Houston. And then Jonathan Pollard and I and of course, Brandon Robertson are all making inroads. We have a connection in San Antonio as well. So we really are hoping to sort of have a sort of Texas triangle of, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, with Austin in the middle as sort of being the hub, and just sort of having our own Texas community built out of that. Because I see how amazing it is for the other scenes, especially on the East Coast, to just sort of casually hop on a plane for a very affordable price and just go and hang out for an entire weekend. And we're starting to get that. We have a team from Dallas that's coming to Cinco Bee Mayo as well. And so very, very much excited about just sort of seeing where the trajectory of Killer Queen in Texas is going. But I think we're at a fantastic starting point. We have just sort of a fantastic model that we can then hopefully copy paste to other scenes. If I haven't said it enough, just huge shout out to the community of Austin as a whole. I'm just very grateful for the time that they give us, and just all of the blood, sweat, and tears that we all sort of, but at the same time, just all of the enjoyment, all of the fun, all of the passion that we share about Killer Queen and about the community. We do have the best memes. And I know that if you're looking for a hot take, there it is.
Hot take.
So come at me. I'll definitely put what we have, the product that we put forward, against any other community and any other discussion. I would like to issue a challenge to the rest of the community. It's basically this. We raised, as a scene, almost $4,000 in Austin last year. And our goal was probably to double that this year, and this is going to be in November of 2018. I would challenge all the rest of the scenes in November of 2018. It's, I believe, that first weekend in November after Halloween. Mm-hmm. I dare you to beat us. I dare you all to beat us as the community as a whole, of just how much we can raise for Children's Miracle Network, for your local hospital. We already have the stream set up. We already stream all the time. It's not that much of a step to then just sort of set up a separate donation webpage and promote it just sort of a week before, just like we do on our Facebook group. There's nothing new or magical about doing that, other than simply engaging. So if you're interested in accepting the challenge, I certainly have plenty of content. And of course, Jonathan, Pollard, and Brandon, being part of Extra Life, have content to share as well. So looking forward to your response there. But I would certainly hope that you accept the challenge and see the reasoning behind the challenge. And I guess the last thing that I want to say is just that a lot, this is a video game, and so like attrition happens, that people do sort of come and go. But I think there's I think a simple like text message or Facebook message or something that just sort of reach out to players goes a long way to just help make sure that everyone's taken care of with Killer Queen, but just in life overall in general. So I think that might be part of the secret sauce that's here in Austin, is just that we all do sort of look out for each other at the levels that we can and that are appropriate, but just to make sure that we do stay friends, and that just that everybody is in general, approaching Killer Queen and approaching their gameplay from a very balanced and very, very positive outlook, just goes a long way to keep our scene close and tight knit and together and growing.
Yeah, and that's awesome, man. And the gauntlet is thrown, everybody. You guys have to beat Austin's now projected $8,000 in November for Extra Life. Again, reach out to him if you want the details. Extra Life is great. Children's Miracle Network is also a great charity, so I don't see why not. We've had people talking about it. Proof's in the pudding.
Right.
Let's do it. Every scene. Let's set it up.
Austin versus the world. Let's do it. Yep.
Thank you so much, Joe, for coming on and chatting with us. It's been great just getting a deep dive into, everything that went into making Austin such a great scene.
Oh, it's been great being on the show. Just thank you so much for putting out the content that you do, and obviously, it really is edge of the seat. I make a point to watch every episode that you put out, and so moving forward, looking forward to season 2 and just everything else that's going to be coming from Team Break.
Thanks, man. That means a lot. And thank you everybody for checking in and watching this episode. We'll see you for the 10th episode next week. Awesome. Yeah.